Hey guys, Javier here from PowerPoint to Collectibles, and today's video we're going to be talking about something interesting I found online, an unreleased Tommy doll. Yeah, like what? What? Before we get into me showing you the picture of what the doll is, I kind of want to talk about, the background of Power Rangers back in the 90s, and then how the toy manufacturing and how business was, and that's what the channel's about, talking about the toys. So if you see me looking at the screen, again, I'm looking at my notes, but here we go, let's begin. So first off, Power Rangers was a big success off the bat. It was something brought over here by Haim Saban in 1993. That's when the first episode first aired here in the United States. So because it was a high popularity show, of course there's going to be high demand for the toys, right? So according to an article on time.com, it says that by 1995, Power Ranger toys, costumes, and merchandise generated about $1 billion in revenue. Whoa, that's a lot. So why am I talking about that in general? Well, we gotta understand how the toys were happening and what was going on in the toy market for Power Rangers back then that led up to, this Tommy doll to never be released. So in the first wave of Power Rangers toys over here, we did get two dolls. We got a Power Rangers Pink Ranger Kimberly and a Power Rangers Yellow Ranger Trini. So they each came with their costume and a change of civilian clothes, and you were able to put on and off their helmet, gloves, and boots. It wasn't weird for there to be doll toys of the women Rangers because back then, Barbie was in the incline of being a popularity. Here we have a chart in 1993 is when it started, at $1 billion. So, and then it just started going up in 1994, 1995. So, of course, they're going to jump in on the opportunity to sell dolls, to kids. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to sell toys. So, if it's like, okay, you want to hit both markets, that's what most toy companies want to do nowadays, kind of hit a little bit of both markets or just aim at one particular market. But if you could get, a little bit of the other market, if you can, that'll be great. So that's what they're trying to do here with, their female rangers. And that could also be a possibility why Trini in the original was a male and then in ours it was a female to kind of get that more female viewership. So those were the first two dolls released by Power Rangers. And then we actually get a Aisha. We did end up getting an Aisha, as you can see here. She did come again, same way the other two came with civilian clothes, and then also her, Power Ranger suit, helmet, gloves, and boots. What we did get though was a two-pack, a yellow and pink Ranger with Kimberly and Aisha. The first set was released, with the show to kind of correspond with the two female characters we have, and as you can, so we had a whole bunch of toys that were released just for the movie, and to also hit that female market, they just repackaged them and gave them what seems like a different fabric for their Power Ranger outfits. But it looks like they came with the same dresses. So we did not get a cat doll. I couldn't find one online. So what I was thinking that was happening was that they were gonna release another Kimberly, but they might have just repackaged the original one that they did for the first wave. They might have just repackaged it. I couldn't find a repackaged one. I don't know if there maybe was one, or they just kind of was selling it next to Trini, like they were selling all three: Trini, Aisha, and then Kimberly all together. I'm not quite sure. But I did find this unreleased Kimberly doll that she comes with different civilian outfit. So I don't know if that was like what they were trying to use for the next season, but then they might have just ended up just reusing, the Kimberly they used for the first wave. So that's the basic background how it was with the female dolls. One was trying to hit, girls and boys, so they're trying to do dolls for girls. But what happened? Like, what caused them to not make this unreleased doll? Well, Power Rangers Zeo came out in 1996, and which would make you think like, well, like what happened? If we can see back on our graph, we see that in 1996, Barbie sales were like the highest they were ever been. In 1997, they were actually the highest Barbie doll sales of all time. So that means dolls in general were probably at a high demand here. So like what happened? Why wasn't this doll released? Well, what I can see from actually being able to see beyond what happened at the time, I mean, if I was back then in 1997, I wouldn't know like what was going on. But now that we have the internet and we can see what happened in the future after this Zeo, and we can see Turbo, like we can see like what happened. So Rangers Zeo aired in 1996, and then in 1997, that's when I believe this toy of Tommy Cat and Aisha was planned this. These three individual dolls was planned to be released, and it doesn't surprise me to for them to release Tommy, because there's a Ken version, so Tommy would have probably been the Ken for Power Rangers. So what happened? Why wasn't this toy released? Well, for starters, Barbie was in the highest demand in 1997, right when Power Rangers Zeo came out. It was already around for a year, so I mean, it was the highest it ever was. So it makes sense for them to like, hey, keep, you know, produce these dolls out there so they could, because there's a demand. So here are my thoughts on what happened. One, we can see in the graph here that in 1997 to 1998, Barbie sales just dropped. There was a big drop there. It might have been because there was too much demand, but then all these other companies started popping up, to kind of take a bite out of that market share. And that's what happened. There was too much, there's high demand, but then supply was too much of just dolls in general. So it kind of like went down, because this is just a graph for Barbie sales. It doesn't mean, the demand for Barbies fell. But again, it could have been that demand also fell. Maybe Saban saw that, like, oh, you know what? Barbie's declining. And also all toys for girls that they're targeting for probably wasn't selling as much as the boys' toys was. Because they only have 2 Rangers for girls, and then everything else was, boys' toys. So it was like a smart chunk of their revenue, and it wasn't a lot. So when they probably saw that there was a decline in this, demand, and they're like, you know what, there's not a high demand, just cut, just no more production. So they just kind of kept aiming at toys, and we can see that with Power Ranger Turbo, because there's not even one doll. If they knew that they were making money with dolls and with toys on girl sales, then they would have produced at least one or two, at least the Pink Ranger or maybe the Yellow Ranger, at least one toy to kind of aim at girls. But there wasn't anything released in Power Rangers Turbo. So that's how I kind of came up to the conclusion that their sales for girls toys dropped dramatically, so they didn't release them for Zeo, and that's why there was nothing at all for Turbo, like nothing planned. There wasn't even any prototypes that I was able to find online. But for Zeo, we see that there were some prototypes, but nothing got released. So what I'm guessing is that at the height of Power Rangers Zeo, oh, they're gonna release it, but then as demand of dolls probably went down. They're like, you know what, we're already struggling to sell these girl toys. Let's not do it anymore. And then that's why we never get to see this. This is, you can see, this is Kat, this is Tommy, and this is Aisha. And you're probably wondering, oh, well, this is like a foreign catalog. It probably isn't them. But let me show you this picture. So this is a picture I got from Super Sentai or Ranger, the Shot Factory, and you can see all 5 Rangers there. You can clearly see the Pink Ranger does not have blonde hair, and then the Red Ranger does not have long hair. So we can assume that, yeah, this is, from ours. Our Kat, our Tommy, and our Aisha. So these were figures that just were never released. But that's my thoughts on that. That's what I found. That's what I came to the conclusion with the business aspect and all that. Let me know down below if I'm able to leave the comments open. I will. Let me know your thoughts on this, and let me know if you would have bought one back then if these were to come out, and then now how much you think that Tommy would have been worth, because everything Tommy just goes up, is like high in price. So how much you think that Tommy doll would have been. But yeah, let me know in the comments down below if I'm able to do that, and until next time,